Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a classic 2000-style corporate training breakdown today. And right off the bat, I want to give a massive thank you to Andy Schaefer, the founder of SalesHelp911.com, for putting all this incredible material together for us. If you're a professional, a manager, or honestly just someone trying to figure out how to navigate the modern workplace without totally burning out, this Explainer is absolutely built for you. Okay, let's dive right in by asking the ultimate corporate mystery, the one that organizational leaders literally try to solve every single day. Does work-life balance actually pay off for employers, or is it just this feel-good buzzword that gets tossed around in HR meetings? I mean, we all know employees want it, right? But does it actually yield a real return on investment for the people signing the paychecks? To uncover the truth here, we're going to quickly walk through 5 key areas. 1. The work-life balance puzzle. 2. Challenges in measuring ROI. 3. A case study on sales executives. 4. Job versus life satisfaction. And finally, 5. The win-win workplace. Let's jump in. Starting us off with Section 1, the work-life balance puzzle. Let's look at the overarching macro-level struggle that organizations face. Right here, we have the title page of a really fascinating 2009 cost-benefit review. This was submitted to the Canadian Association of Administrators of Labor Legislation, or CALL for short. This comprehensive report outlines the exact organizational imperatives driving work-life balance programs. It kind of takes a step back and asks, why are we even talking about this at a corporate policy level to begin with? Like, what's actually driving the need for these massive programmatic shifts in how we work? Well, what's really interesting here is how the report clearly defines the very problems we're trying to solve. Because before we can even talk about balance, we have to talk about conflict. The report identifies the antecedents, basically the root causes of work-life conflict, and it boils down to 2 main culprits: extreme job demands and overwhelming job overload. These are the underlying pressures that make a balanced life feel practically impossible for so many workers today. Moving into Section 2. Challenges in measuring ROI. If we know the root causes are just demands and overload, why is measuring the return on investment for fixing them so incredibly difficult? So the crucial point is that employers face these 7 distinct hurdles when calculating ROI as outlined by that CAAR review. First, you have selection factors, meaning who's actually choosing to use these programs. Then you've got massive inconsistencies in how different companies even analyze their data. There's also the struggle of just clarifying what a flexible work schedule actually means. Like, is it working from home? Is it leaving at 3 p.m.? Then you add in the complexity of the findings, the difficulty in choosing meaningful measures of impact, and the reality of implementation gaps, where a policy exists on paper but just isn't supported by middle management. And finally, the ultimate hurdle, knowing how to attach hard, tangible financial values to a balanced life. I mean, how do you put a dollar sign on an employee's peaceful evening at home? It is incredibly tough for accountants to quantify. Let's move to Section 3, Case Study, Sales Executives. Let's see how all this builds as we transition from broad corporate theory to a highly specific micro-level data set. To really ground our theory in reality, we're examining a 2019 empirical study published in the Think India Quarterly Journal. This research focuses entirely on automobile sales executives. And you might be wondering, why sales executives? Well, because this is a role absolutely infamous for tough targets, high pressure, and really demanding social interactions. If you want to study the extreme edges of work-life conflict, auto sales is pretty much the perfect laboratory. The researchers, Dr. Benita S. Monica and Ms. Emile Gnanamani, distributed structured questionnaires to 70 employees. And what's amazing here is that an impressive 81% returned complete responses. That gave the researchers a highly reliable 57-person sample to work with, which, honestly, is a fantastic response rate for any workplace survey. Looking at the demographics of our sales executives, we have a relatively balanced workforce for this study. The respondents are split between just under 60% male and about 40% female. This is super important because it means the data isn't drastically skewed by just a single gender's experience in the workplace. Furthermore, if you look at the breakdown, the bulk of our sample, 34 out of the 57 people, sits right in the 26 to 40 age bracket. This is traditionally a time of massive life transitions, right? Getting married, having kids, buying homes, all while trying to accelerate a career. Also, notice that more than half hold postgraduate qualifications. This gives us a really clear picture of this professional cohort. We're looking at highly educated professionals in the prime years of their lives, juggling intense sales careers. Now, to make sense of the survey, the researchers used a statistical method to group related answers together.
Essentially, they brilliantly distilled 16 different survey items down into these 4 core dimensions that make up the daily struggle for an auto sales executive. Those 4 dimensions are family-work concerns, work-family concerns, internal conflicts, and anxiety. These 4 pillars basically represent the entire work-life balance puzzle for these workers.
Which brings us to Section 4, Job versus Life Satisfaction. Here's where the investigators ran linear regression models to see exactly what work-life balance actually improves.
And this is where we get our massive plot twist. When they ran the numbers, work-life balance mathematically predicts how satisfied you are with your job. It was a highly significant positive predictor. But conversely, work-life balance actually fails to predict your overall life satisfaction. The statistical link just wasn't there. A balanced work schedule absolutely makes you like your job more, but it does not automatically mean you're going to be happy with your life as a whole. Crazy, right?
Section 5, the win-win workplace. This revelation brings us to our final section, synthesizing what this data actually means for the corporate employer trying to calculate ROI and the everyday employee just trying to survive the week. Even if it doesn't solve all your life's problems, the study confirms the workplace impacts are highly tangible. For the employer, you get positive branding, you foster deep organizational citizenship, and you actively support diversity initiatives. On the flip side, for the employee, you get legitimately lesser stress, increased day-to-day happiness, and massive spikes in motivation and productivity. So, the ROI might be hard to quantify on a balance sheet, as we saw in that Canadian report, but the behavioral outcomes, they're undeniable. Ultimately, the researchers confidently conclude that regardless of whether you view this as a personal dilemma of managing obligations or a corporate culture challenge of supporting your staff, implementing these programs is a win-win. Both the organization and the individual come out ahead when the root causes of job overload are actually addressed.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder as you log off your corporate training for the day. The data clearly shows us that if balancing your schedule only fixes your career happiness but completely fails to predict your overall life satisfaction, what else do you need to truly balance your life? It's a question data alone can't answer, but one we all have to figure out for ourselves. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.